Welcome to Horror Story Society, where the lights feel colder and the shadows feel closer. Tonight's story begins right now. You don't forget the sound a drawbridge makes when it's opening, not because it's loud, but because it's alive. It's a slow, grinding groan that crawls up your spine, like metal waking up and realizing it's hungry. The night the bridge opened on its own, I was alone in the control house with my coffee going cold. The fog pressed against the glass like a palm, and the controls were in front of me. Hands off, key out, panel dark. Yet the red warning lights flickered on anyway, one by one, like something was running a finger down a checklist. Then the gate arms dropped. The siren started, that long, patient wail that tells cars to stop. Except there were no cars, no boats scheduled, no radio call, no reason for the bridge to raise. And still, the machinery underneath my feet answered a command nobody gave. The bridge began to lift. I remember saying, out loud, to an empty room, "Who the hell is there?" And that's when the PA speaker crackled. Not my voice, not dispatch, not the harbor master. A breathy, wet sound, like someone had exhaled into a microphone they shouldn't be able to reach. Then a sentence, slow and smiling, "Open it all the way." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. I grabbed the handheld radio and pressed the button. Bridge house to harbor. Harbor, do you copy? Something's. Static swallowed my words. And from somewhere under the bridge, under all that fog and black water, a horn answered. Not the clean, distant blast of a ship. This was deeper, wrong. Like a throat you're not supposed to hear. It boomed once, and the bridge shuddered higher. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I could think of. I reached for the binder of rules the last guy left behind, and flipped to the page I had been told, very specifically, never to open at night. I took the job because I needed something quiet. Something simple. Something that didn't involve people asking questions I didn't want to answer. A bridge is supposed to be honest work. It opens, it closes, it lets boats through, it lets cars across. It's just math, and maintenance, and routine. The bridge in this town, Gull Harbor, Maine, is an old bascule drawbridge, the kind that lifts like a jaw. It connects the mainland to a small island where maybe 300 people live year-round. Lobster boats, a few summer houses, a church that leans into the wind like it's tired. In the summer, the bridge cycles constantly. Sightseeing boats, sailboats, fishing charters, the occasional yacht that doesn't belong. But I got hired in October after tourists leave and the ocean starts looking less like a view and more like a warning. The bridge house sits on the mainland side. A little box of glass and old paint perched above the roadway. Inside, a control panel, a lever, warning switches, the PA mic, and a radio that connects to harbor and the sheriff. On my first day, the guy training me, Eddie, kept pointing at things like he expected them to move on their own. Hydraulic pressure gauge, he said. Listen to that. If the pitch changes, you shut it down. Then he leaned closer, lowered his voice. And if you hear laughing, like kids, you lock everything and you do not, under any circumstances, look down between the teeth. Between the teeth. That's what locals call the gap when the bridge lifts. The black mouth of water beneath. I laughed, because I thought he was messing with me. Eddie didn't. He slid a thick binder across the desk. It was an old 3-ring binder, stained with coffee, salt, and something darker at the corners. No official logo, no department header. Just handwriting on the cover in thick marker. Bridge house, procedures, and underneath it, follow them or you'll be replaced. I asked him what the hell that meant. He stared at me for a long time and said, "People think the bridge is here to connect land." Then, like it physically hurt to say the next part, he added, "Sometimes it connects to other things." Eddie didn't explain. He just made me read the binder. The procedures weren't like normal safety rules, not OSHA stuff. They were personal, superstitious, specific, written like somebody learned them the hard way. I'll never forget the first page I actually understood. If the bridge opens without a request, do not touch the lever for 30 seconds. Let it choose the height. If fog rolls under the bridge before midnight, keep the roadway gates down until it passes. Even if cars are waiting, if you hear a horn from beneath the waterline, you do not answer on the radio, not even to say you heard it. Do not count the footsteps on the catwalk. If you reach 12, stop listening. If the PA turns on by itself, do not speak your name. It learns faster when you introduce yourself. Never look down through the teeth when the bridge is higher than halfway. Your mind will try to finish the shape. If you see a vessel with no running lights, open the bridge fully and look away. It doesn't like to be watched. At 3:07 a.m., if the bridge requests opening, you comply. You are not the one being served. There were more, pages of them. Some were scribbled over, rewritten, updated like the binder was alive and adapting. I asked Eddie who wrote it. He said, "The bridge house writes it." I asked him what happened if you don't follow the rules. Eddie took a key from his pocket, held it between two fingers like it was heavy. "This isn't a job you quit," he said. "It's a job you hand off." Then he pointed at the fog outside the window. "And the bridge always collects what it's owed." The first 2 weeks were almost normal. I did my checks, logged the readings, greased the gears, listened to the hydraulics like Eddie taught me. The island folks were polite in that Maine way. Quiet, watchful, not unfriendly. The sheriff stopped by once. A tired man named Pike with a mustache that looked like it had given up. He asked how I was settling in. I almost mentioned the binder, but something in his eyes, like he already knew, made me swallow it. He just said, "If Eddie left you the book, you read it." I said, "Yeah." He nodded once, like that was the whole conversation. Then, one night around 11:40, the fog rolled in fast, thick, heavy. Not the usual drift this looked poured. It slid under the bridge like a living thing. So I dropped the gates and waited. A pickup rolled up and stopped, headlights cutting white lines into the fog. The driver leaned out. "Hey, what's the holdup?" I picked up the intercom mic and kept my voice calm. "Bridge delay. Please remain stopped." He threw his hands up, frustrated. Behind him another car came, then another. People don't like being told no, especially when they can't see the reason. That's when I heard it. Not from outside. From under the floor, in the metal bones of the bridge. A soft sound, like someone chuckling into their sleeve. I froze, because it wasn't one laugh. It was many, high and thin, like children playing in a place children shouldn't be. I kept my eyes forward. I did not look down. I remembered Eddie's voice. "Lock everything. Don't look between the teeth." The guy in the pickup honked, and the laughter answered. Not louder, just closer, like it had moved beneath my feet. The fog held for exactly 9 minutes. Then it slid away, as sudden as it came. The laughter stopped with it. The pickup driver waved as he crossed, like nothing happened. But I stayed in the control house long after my shift ended, staring at the binder like it might blink. The weird part wasn't the fog. Maine does fog. The weird part was what came after it, little changes that made the bridge feel less like equipment and more like a mood. I'd come in and find the PA mic slightly moved, or a page of the binder flipped open even though I knew I closed it. Once, I found wet footprints on the catwalk outside, bare feet, leading from the roadway gate to the edge of the raised span. They stopped where the bridge teeth meet the water. No return prints. I told myself it was kids, drunk fishermen, somebody messing around. But the prints were too clean, too deliberate. Then came the radio calls. Harbor would check in. "Bridge house, you awake?" I'd answer, "Normal." But twice, I heard something else first. Like the radio clicked on mid-sentence. "Still hear you breathing," a voice whispered once. I yanked the radio away from my face like it was hot. The voice wasn't Eddie, not Pike, not Harbor, and it didn't sound like it was coming through the speaker. It sounded like it was coming through the water. I wrote it down in the log anyway, because that's what you do when you're trying to prove you're not losing your mind. 12:13 a.m., radio opened. Unknown voice, breathing. When I came in the next day, Somebody had added a note in the margin beside my entry. Not typed, not stamped, handwritten. Don't answer them when they start with you. My stomach went tight because I hadn't told anyone. No one else had access to my log but me and the bridge house. If you work night shifts long enough, you start measuring your life in tiny rituals. Coffee at point 10, second lap around the control house at 2:30, third check of the pressure gauge at 20:55, then 3:07. It was the only rule in the binder that didn't sound like advice. It sounded like tribute. At 3:07 a.m., if the bridge requests opening, you comply. The first time 3:07 came and nothing happened, I felt relief like a warm blanket. The second time, same. The third time, I was looking right at the panel. 3:06 turned to 3:07, and the panel lights came on by themselves. Not all at once, one by one, like the bridge was waking up carefully. The request indicator blinked. No boat on radar, no call on radio, just a blinking light asking to be obeyed. My mouth went dry. I picked up the radio with shaking hands. Harbor, this is Bridge House. Do you have... And then I remembered Rule 3, horn beneath the waterline. Don't answer the radio. I stopped talking. Outside, through the window, the fog had thickened again. So dense the street lamps became fuzzy halos. And down below, the water made a sound like something shifting its weight. Then the horn came. Not from out in the channel, from directly under the bridge. A single, deep blast that vibrated the glass. The request light blinked faster, like impatience. So I did what the binder said. I engaged the system. I opened the bridge, and as it rose, the laughter returned. Soft, delighted, like something was finally getting what it wanted. I stared straight ahead and refused to look down. The bridge lifted to full height, and I waited for a boat to pass through. Nothing moved in the fog. No engines, no lights, just the sound of water and that distant, wet breathing. Then, very softly, the PA speaker crackled. Rule 5, don't speak your name. I didn't touch the mic. The PA was on anyway. And a voice came through that speaker that shouldn't have had any voice at all. It sounded like it was smiling. My hands clenched so hard my nails bit into my palm. I did not look. I stared at the clock. 3:07, 3:08, 3:09. And then the bridge began to lower by itself, slow and satisfied, like a jaw closing after being fed. When it locked back into place, the request light turned off. The fog thinned. The laughter disappeared. And I realized I had been holding my breath the entire time. I lasted 3 more nights after that. 3 nights of reading the binder like scripture. 3 nights of refusing to look down. 3 nights of pretending this was just an old town's weird tradition and not something real. Then I made the mistake. It was small. It was human. It was the kind of mistake you make when you're tired and angry and sick of being afraid of a bridge. It happened at 2:41 a.m. when I heard footsteps on the catwalk. But these were barefoot, wet, and slow. I told myself, don't count. So naturally, my brain counted anyway. 1, 2, 3. The footsteps got closer. 4, 5. I put my hands over my ears. 6. Still, my mind counted in the background like a metronome. 7, 8, 9. I stood up and looked toward the door, telling myself I'd just check the lock. 10. My heart hammered. 11. The footsteps stopped right outside the control house door. And then, 12. Rule said, stop listening. So I did. I forced my mind blank. I focused on the hum of the heater, the faint buzz of the overhead light. I refused to hear anything beyond that. And for a moment, it worked. Then the doorknob turned, slowly, testing, not a jiggle like a person trying a locked door. This was careful, curious, like something learning how doors behave. I stayed still. The doorknob stopped. Then the PA speaker clicked on. A whisper, barely audible, slid into the room. Jonah. My blood went ice. Because Rule 5 said, don't speak your name. But it never said they couldn't speak it first. The whisper continued, gentle as a lover. Jonah, open the door. I didn't move. The whisper became a little sharper. You counted. My mouth went dry. You listened. And then, right up against the glass window, two pale hands pressed flat like they'd been waiting outside all along. I couldn't see a face, just hands, wet and trembling slightly, like they were excited. Then, below the hands, a shape leaned in, something smooth where features should be. A blank oval, reflecting the control room light like a polished shell. No eyes, no mouth. But I felt it looking. My whole body screamed to look away, but I couldn't. And the faceless thing tilted its head as if it was curious about how I worked. The PA whispered again, you can't do this forever. I don't remember deciding. I just grabbed the binder, flipped it open with shaking hands, and read whatever page it fell to. A page I'd never seen. A page that looked newer than the rest, like it had been written recently. If you see one at the window, do not scream. Do not pray. Do not run. Open the bridge halfway. Let it go back under. My hands moved on their own. I pulled the lever. Warning lights flashed. Gates dropped. Siren wailed. The bridge began to lift. The faceless thing didn't move. It just stayed pressed to the glass, like it wanted to watch. When the bridge reached halfway, the horn sounded under the waterline again, long, satisfied. The faceless thing's hands slid down the glass, leaving wet streaks. Then it backed away into the fog and vanished. The bridge lowered. The request light turned off, and I realized my shirt was soaked with sweat. The next morning, I went to find Eddie. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I drove to the address he'd given me, an old rental on the mainland. The driveway was empty. The curtains were gone. The mailbox had been removed. A neighbor watering plants stared at me like I was trespassing. Excuse me, I said. Eddie, he lives here, right? The neighbor squinted. Eddie, bridge tender, older guy. The neighbor's expression tightened, like a muscle memory of discomfort. Haven't had anyone live there in months. My throat went tight. I tried again. He trained me. He gave me the binder. The neighbor stopped watering, looked me up and down, and said very quietly, "Don't say that out loud." I swallowed. Why? The neighbor glanced toward the bridge in the distance, barely visible through sea haze. Because if you say the last tender's name, they whispered, it thinks you're asking for him back. I stood there, stunned, and the neighbor added, like it was the most normal thing in the world, the bridge doesn't like gaps in the schedule. I drove back to work with my hands numb on the wheel. When I got to the control house, Sheriff Pike was waiting. He didn't greet me. He didn't ask how I was. He just held out a paper bag and set it on the desk. Inside was a cassette tape. No label. Just a piece of masking tape with one word written on it. Play. I stared at him. What is this? Pike's voice was flat, tired. It's for when you stop believing the rules, he said. I didn't. You did, he cut in. Because you're still here. He nodded toward the old tape player under the desk, the one I assumed was broken. It'll work, he said. It always works when it needs to. Then he stepped toward the door and paused. Jonah, he said without turning around, do you know why this bridge is a drawbridge? I swallowed. For boats. Pike shook his head. For permission, he said. It's a gate that pretends it's infrastructure. And then he left me alone with the tape. So I played it. Static. A hiss. Then Eddie's voice, rough and close, like he'd recorded it in the control house. If you're hearing this, it means I couldn't hand it off the right way. A long pause. I'm sorry. Another pause. Smaller, like he was fighting tears. The bridge is not for boats. Boats are just the excuse. I could hear something in the background of the tape, faint laughter. Eddie continued. It opens for what comes up the channel when the fog is thick enough to hide it. It opens for what lives under the waterline and remembers the shape of older paths. His voice dropped. It takes payments. It takes time. It takes names. He inhaled shakily. And sometimes, it takes the person inside the bridge house. The tape clicked. Static again. Then Eddie whispered, when it opens on its own, it's not asking you to operate it. A beat. It's asking you to witness. The tape ended. And behind me, the PA speaker clicked on, soft as a throat clearing. That brings me back to the night I started with. Fog pressed against the windows, panel dark, key out, and the bridge opening anyway. The PA had whispered, open it all the way. I stood there with Eddie's tape echoing in my head. It's asking you to witness. The bridge rose higher and higher, the teeth separating like a mouth making room, and the horn under the waterline sounded again, closer than ever, like it was directly beneath my feet. I looked at the binder. Rule 1. Don't touch the lever for 30 seconds. Let it choose the height. 30 seconds felt like a year. The bridge stopped at full lift, locked there, humming, and the fog under it thickened until it didn't look like fog anymore. It looked like something pouring upward from the water. I heard the bare footsteps again. On the catwalk. Wet. Slow. I refused to count, but I couldn't stop imagining the number. The PA crackled. Jonah, it whispered. I did not answer. Then the voice changed, deeper, more amused. Do you want to see what Eddie saw? My skin prickled, because I hadn't said Eddie's name. But the bridge had. I backed away from the window, kept my eyes level, forced myself to stare at the clock. 3:06, 3:07. The request light blinked like a pulse. Then the roadway gate alarm began beeping, as if a car had pulled up. But there were no headlights in the fog, no engine sound, just a shape forming where the road should be. A silhouette of something tall and narrow, standing patiently at the closed gate like it understood traffic laws. The gate arms trembled, not from wind, from pressure, like something leaned on them gently, testing. The PA whispered, let it cross. I swallowed hard. And that's when the binder, sitting on the desk, flipped open by itself, pages turning fast, like fingers. It stopped on a page with fresh ink that looked like it hadn't existed yesterday. If it waits at the gate, open the roadway. Do not look at its feet. Do not speak. Do not move until it passes. If it stops in front of you, pretend you are not there. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my throat. Outside, the silhouette shifted slightly, like it had read the rule too, like it knew I was deciding. I reached for the gate control. My hand hovered, and the PA, very softly, very sweetly, said, if you don't let it cross, you'll have to take its place. The silhouette took one slow step forward. The fog peeled away just enough for me to see the edge of it. Not skin, not clothing, something smooth and dark like wet stone. And beneath it, just for a split second, I saw the suggestion of hands dragging along the road. Too long, too many joints. I snapped my eyes up. Don't look at its feet. My fingers closed around the gate control. I pulled. The gate arms rose. The siren cut off. Silence fell so abruptly it made my ears ring. The silhouette moved. It crossed the roadway with the patience of something pretending to be normal. Halfway across, it paused. right in front of the control house. I froze. I remembered the last rule on the page. If it stops in front of you, pretend you are not there. So I did. I stared at the wall behind the panel. I breathed shallow. I made my body small. The silhouette leaned closer to the window. I could feel it, even without looking, like cold pressure. Then the PA speaker whispered again, close and delighted. Good. A pause. You learn fast. The silhouette continued across the bridge toward the island. When it vanished into the fog, the bridge, still raised, began to lower on its own. Slow, careful, satisfied. When it locked into place, the request light turned off, and the binder snapped shut. I stood there shaking, waiting for relief to come. But relief didn't come. Instead, my radio clicked on. A voice I recognized. Harbor Dispatch. Sounded confused. Bridge House, do you copy? We're getting reports from the island. People say the bridge tender is walking down Main Street. My stomach dropped. I pressed the radio button, but no sound came out. The button didn't work. The radio wasn't mine anymore. Dispatch continued, voice tightening. They say he's soaking wet. They say he's barefoot. They say he's smiling. My throat closed, because I was still in the control house. So who were they seeing? Then another voice cut in over dispatch, low, wet, and amused. The same voice from under the waterline. He handed it off. A pause, like a grin. Now, it's your turn to keep the schedule. The control house lights flickered. The PA clicked. And behind me, on the door to the control house, I heard the soft, familiar sound of wet, bare feet stepping onto the threshold. I didn't turn around. I didn't speak. I reached for the binder with shaking hands. Because if there was one thing I understood now, it was that the bridge doesn't need a tender to open. It needs a tender to stay. And somewhere out in the fog, something was already learning my shape. I'm still here, still working nights, still following the rules. And every now and then, when the fog rolls under the bridge before midnight, I hear laughing. Not below me, not outside, but right behind the control house door. Like something is waiting for me to forget. Like something is practicing how to be me. This is Horror Story Society, and you made it to the end. If you felt that chill, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.